What's the difference between passion and purpose? Those two experiences are very, very powerful words. They're powerful in people's lives. Most people, especially as you get older, you start asking yourself, why am I here? Like, what is my purpose? Why am I born? And of course, when you're younger and you have kids and you're building a career and a house and safety and all that, our purpose kind of gets filled, if you will, through our daily lives, especially if you're raising kids. But eventually, life reaches another place. Eventually, most people become that empty nester and their kids move on and hopefully they've launched well because you've been a great parent. But then you have to ask yourself the question, why? Like, why am I here now? What am I going to fill my time with? And so very often people fill that time, their entire young years, in the quest of accomplishing more, of the quest of gaining more, of filling that 401k, of finding that career, of finding that right person, making sure you're in the right neighborhood with the right neighbors and the big enough house and the right color car. And quite honestly, that fills a lot of time, especially when you're younger. But eventually, you reach a place that it's time for more. It reminds me of a story of a woman that I heard online 2 or 3 years ago, and she had just sold her business. She had just launched 2 boys into college. She had divorced because she and her husband kind of outgrew each other, and she even sold the family house of 20 years. And I could just tell in her voice, I could tell in her heart that, she was really questioning, like, what now? What's next? Well, the answer to the what next, for most people, is to find your purpose. And that sense of purpose sometimes, though, can be very confused with a sense of passion. And what is the difference between purpose and passion? Well, passion, quite honestly, is an emotional expression of joy, of love, of bigness, of expression. It's an emotional thing that happens, especially when you get excited or you really believe in something or you really have a sense of love for something and you really want to give it all you can give it. And that's where passion comes in. It's a pleasurable experience. It's kind of a non-ending, always growing, big emotional expression. It comes from the heart. It's a real life thing. But is it purpose? No, not really. Why? Because you can have passion to throw a baseball. You can have passion to lose weight. You can have passion to go out and run a mile, to run a marathon, to be the best neighbor you can be. You can have a lot of passions in life, but how does that really make a difference in life? Well, when you find your purpose is really that internal experience that happens for each individual when you reach that place where by taking action steps that the world becomes a different place. Now, of course, definition of world is up to each person, and there's no right or wrong here. Some people have a higher purpose in gaining and creating a learning center for their local third graders, and those third graders that come through that class in a local city, they're different because somebody's purpose was to make the life of third graders better. And then there's some people that have a purpose that's literally a global mission. Well, for myself, I have to tell you that happened to me. I was in South Africa a month or so ago, and my life was never be the same. I was there on business. I was giving a speech and sharing my heart, my wisdom, my love with that community. And as I left that night, I was sitting next to a man, and he came up to me. He traveled from Tanzania down to South Africa, where I was in Johannesburg. And he sat and he just started talking. And his name is Praise, and Praise is a very powerful young man. He's in his mid-30s. And he told me a story about when he was a boy. And when he was a boy, he lived in a village that was right, literally either on the edge or in the center of the Serengeti. And I'm like, the Serengeti? Goodness gracious, I read about that in the books. He says, oh no, that was our backyard. And that big hill out there, that big mountain that everyone calls Mount Kilimanjaro, yeah, we just called it the hill, the big hill, because it was in our backyard. And me and my buddies played on that mountain our entire lives. And he said, though, it was funny, Joe, because my whole life, my village thought I was crazy because I heard voices. I heard a voice in my head, and I listened, and I just kept kind of, asking questions, probing a little bit. And eventually that voice kind of guided him in the direction of putting out flyers to start advertising to tourists that he was going to be a tour guide. Well, lo and behold, 15 years later now, he's one of the top tour guides in that country. He does amazing tours throughout the Serengeti, up Mount Kilimanjaro. He's got, excellent elite tours. He's got grassroots tours. He takes people back to the village where he grew. But he told me a story that changed my life forever. He said, in the village he grew up in, they have no water. I was like, no water? What do you mean no water? He says, no, Joe, just very matter of factly, we had no water. My mom and my sisters every day walked between a mile and a mile and a half to get water. I was like, you're kidding me. It hit me, but it didn't. It kind of went in one ear and out the other, to be quite honest with you. And then, no big deal. Our night ended and I met a new friend and we connected on WhatsApp and, we're still friends today. And then I was at breakfast and a gentleman who is a global entrepreneur. He travels the world and he does hikes and he climbs mountains around the world. Literal peaks, as he calls them. At this point in time, he had climbed 349 peaks around the world. And he says, who's up for an adventure? I was like, well, what the heck? I don't leave here for another 24 hours. I'm up for it. Got in the car. He took me to the place, a cave in South Africa, where some of the oldest bones on the planet have ever been found. And he was just driving me around a little bit. Actually, I was driving. And which was interesting, driving on the right side of the road for me, being from America, we're on the left side. So I was having a brand new experience and we started going through these different communities that were really poor. And I said, is this kind of normal? He just shook his head. Now he's an experienced traveler. This is the first time I've been out of the country. And he said, yeah, Joe, it's pretty normal. In fact, these people are pretty well off. And it was interesting because their huts were all very close. You saw antennas, which means they had cell phones. But I said, do they have water? No, probably not. That's like, really? And he said, maybe these communities do, but then we kept driving. Long story short, we're out and about and we're walking around and we come across these two young boys and their smiles on their face were just fabulous. That was the amazing thing I have to say about South Africa. Everybody I met there, that entire community had very large presence of God in their heart. And that's exactly what I call it, God heart. And these two young boys come up and big smiles and I kind of go down on my knee and I talk a little bit. And afterwards they just ran off, no shoes. They just ran off and I said, what about them? Do they have water? He looks at me, shakes his head. No, Joe, I guarantee you, they don't have water. And I couldn't believe it. It's 2025 and there's people on the planet that don't have running water. I went on to learn that, in my naivete, I say all the time, I'm that stereotypical middle-aged white guy from the US. I just didn't know. Well, I know now. And I went on to find out that in Africa, over 400 million people don't have water in their homes, let alone their communities. Men will actually marry multiple wives. They call them water walkers or something like that. And my brain exploded and my heart filled and I just felt it right then. That's my purpose. Water is my purpose. We've started a live stream called The Smile. I realized on my trip back, 15 hours in the plane, that many of the poorest communities on the planet, they've got plenty of love in their heart. They are connected to God. They are connected to the ground. They are connected to something much higher than themselves. But what they're missing is knowledge. The parents of the parents. We typically are raised by our parents and we kind of learn a little bit more than our parents learned. I'm third generation. My grandfather was raised in Italy, came to the States as a 17-year-old boy, never went back to Italy for 67 years. He was your stereotypical, came across the ocean with no shoes. became a coal miner, built a business. My father then worked for the city. He never had a college degree, but he was one of the first people in his family to graduate high school. And my whole life, it wasn't about going what I was doing. I was going to college. It was where? My whole life. Generations change. But what I realized from listening to praise is that the people in these poorest communities, the fathers and the grandfathers and the great-grandfathers, they're all extremely well-meaning people, but their exposure to knowledge is limited. So what we've done and what we're doing, we've created a live stream called The Smile. It's an awareness, and I need your help. If you're watching this video, if you've gotten to this point, please help me. I need people to get this word out to the communities, the poorest communities on the planet. I've got a 60-second video. You can find it. Come to my YouTube channel, and you can find my 60-second video. Please send it to people. Send it to missionaries. Send it to nonprofits. Send it to people, because what we're going to be doing on the live stream starting July the 1st, and then the 1st and 15th, 10 o'clock Eastern, so that the rest of the world, who is their time frames are ahead of ours here in the United States, can be on our call. We're going to just love on people. We're going to tell them about myself and how we're here for them, and you're not forgotten, and I love you, and that God's inside you, and you have to pray for strength and courage. And then we're going to point them to our website called ProjectSmile.World. And on ProjectSmile.World, they're going to find any and all type of educational tools they need to empower themselves. From first grade math to learning how to be an online assistant. From third grade learning how to read to learning how to maybe be a farmer or a construction worker or whatever it is. We've got ebooks on there, all free. Everything on ProjectSmile.World is free, and it's designed to help bring knowledge and passion together. We have the most heartfelt people on the planet, and all they need is a little knowledge. Like I'm going to tell everybody on that call, I cannot rescue you, but I can empower you to rescue yourself. I can give you the tools which technology today allows, the tools needed to be educated, so that you are the generation of change. Just like all of us are a generation of change. We are. If you're watching this video, if you've gotten this far, you're one of those people. You're part of a change. And humanity, it's time for humanity to do more for humanity. And this whole belief system, it's the government's response, that's nonsense. It's not your government's responsibility to rescue you. It's yours, and it's mine, and it's ours. And what we're doing on ProjectSmile.World is we're giving people around the planet in the poorest communities, and everybody, of course, the knowledge needed to empower themselves. So thank you for listening. Please help me. Go to my website, find me online. My name's Joe Medega. Find me, and you will find my 60-second video. Help us put as many people on these calls, 1st and 15th. And on those calls, it's called The Smile. Why is it called The Smile? Because when I was looking at those two little boys, I saw God just bigger than I could imagine. Felt God in my heart. I felt God in their heart. The only thing missing for those two little boys to have a different future is knowledge. ProjectSmile.World is where passion meets knowledge, and humanity together can make everybody on this planet have a better life.